Hello everyone, this is Wade from High Tech Legion, and with over 1,000 videos uploaded, if you haven't seen it here, you may not have seen it anywhere. What we have in front of us here is the Fractal Design ARC Mini R2 mid-tower computer case. It is a compact mid-tower computer case supporting Micro ATX and Mini-ITX motherboards. It does have lots of support for water cooling radiators, and we're going to be giving you an overview, showing you a quick component installation, and showing you benchmarks for how the case performed in this video. So let's take a closer look at the case now. Here we have a closer look at the front of the Fractal Design ARC Mini R2 mid-tower computer case. What we've got here is two 5¼ inch drive bays and some mesh here above the Fractal Design logo. Behind the mesh is some filter material, and you can actually stick your hand right here. There's a little slot you can put your hand in and pull, and the front bezel comes right off, exposing the inside of the front bezel. You've got some filter material here that you can see, and an additional mounting location for a 120mm fan. Included is one Silent Series R2 120mm fan with a 3-pin fan connector. In your two 5¼ inch drive bays, fillers, which just pop out kind of by squeezing the pieces there, and it comes right out. Behind the front bezel, we've got some space here where you can mount a 240mm radiator, and your fan controller here, which consists of a 4-pin Molex for power and three 3-pin fan connectors. This goes up to the top here, and where our switch is for that, for 5 volts, 7 volts, and 12 volts, so you can get your different fan speeds. You've also got two USB 3.0 ports here, your power switch, and your LED there, as well as your headphone jack, microphone jack, and reset switch. I'm going to go ahead and pop the front bezel back on here. Clips right back in very easily. And then let's take a look at the side of the case. On the side here, you've got a large side window. Still has the protective plastic on it. It is a smoky colored window, so you can see all the interior components very easily. On the top, you see you have a really large section of mesh here with filtering material behind it as well for your radiator. If you decide to take out the optical drive bay, you can put up to a 360mm radiator in. On the rear, you've got your bottom mount power supply, a 120mm fan exhausting air out of the case, two water cooling grommets, your motherboard I/O tray, 4 expansion slots, plus 1 expansion slot here if you wanted to put one of the extra cards on the back that has eSATA on it or something like that. You can put it in here and just run the cable to the motherboard. You have a filter that pops out, easy to clean, on the bottom for the bottom fan location and power supply. Everything is held on with thumb screws on the back here, including the top of the case, which you can pop off. And then on the other side is just the normal side panel. So let's take a closer look at the interior. Here we have a closer look at the inside of the ARC Mini R2 case from Fractal Design. What you can see is you've got your 6 drive bays here, which all have a nice metal clip on them and rubber grommets for mounting drives into them. These drive bays are actually removable. There's a thumb screw here and a thumb screw here. The top one would slide out, and there's some screws that go into the bottom, through the bottom of the case for the bottom one. If you wanted to pull that one out, you can as well. And the optical drive bay section also is removable with a couple screws on each side. On the bottom, you've got your bottom mount power supply location. It does have some rubber on it to support the power supply. and you have a bottom mount location for a 120 millimeter fan or water cooling. On the back, you've got a 120 millimeter fan included, and you can put a 120 millimeter or a 140 millimeter fan in place there. You got a closer look at your expansion slots, your 4 expansion slots plus 1 here. Your wiring, which includes your power switch, power LED, hard drive LED, and your reset switch. You've also got a USB 3 header with backwards compatible USB 2.0 header connection. You do not want to connect both of these up to your motherboard, or else you could cause problems, but they give that option so that the front panel ports can work as either USB 3.0 or USB 2.0 if you're using this with a motherboard that doesn't have a USB 3.0 header. You can see the cable management holes are all covered with rubber grommets, so your cables get routed very easily and it covers them up nicely. You've also got a large heatsink cutout here, and that will allow you to work on your heatsink very easily. On the top of the case is a 140 millimeter fan that is included. Again, the Silent R2 series fan from Fractal Design. You can put a 240 millimeter radiator up here, or if you pull the optical disc drive bay out, you can put up to a 360 millimeter radiator in the top of a mid-tower case. There aren't too many mid-tower cases out there that you can say that about. Finally, we have the back side of the motherboard tray. What you see here is you actually have 2 SSD mounting brackets here, or 2.5. You can put any 2.5-inch drive in here, SSD or regular laptop style hard drive. You've got clips here for running your cables along and zip tying them in. You get a closer look at all the cable routing holes all along the entire edge of the motherboard tray, the large CPU heatsink cutout, and the pre-routed cables that are routed nicely and in place, as well as the back side of the hard drive bays. So let's start installing some components into it and then show the benchmarks. First thing we're going to need for our component installation is our accessory kit, and Fractal Design gives us a manual here with lots of illustrations and various languages so that you can get your installation done easily. They've also got an accessory kit which they ship in this little box here. On the back of it, it has the sizes and quantities of all your screws and things. You've got 8 thumb screws, 9 motherboard standoffs, 9 motherboard screws, 4 PSU screws, 24 SSD screws, a motherboard standoff fastening tool, which makes it very easy to get the standoffs nice and tight in the motherboard tray, 24 anti-vibration hard drive screws for these hard drive bays here, and 8 hard drive disk tray screws, so along with 6 cable ties. All that is included here in this nice little bag of screws, and so we'll get the standoffs installed and the power supply installed into the case and give you a look at that. Here we have our motherboard standoffs installed, and I've also put the power supply in and routed the main ATX cables through the back of the rubber grommets here, so they can come back out to the motherboard once the motherboard's installed, which I will do next. Now you can see we've got our power supply installed, main ATX cables are routed, the motherboard's installed, and all the front panel headers are connected. Our main ATX cables are also connected, and our memory's installed. One thing that I am going to be showing you is the 240 millimeter radiator mounted into the top of the case, so I'm actually going to end up pulling this fan out to put that into place. One thing to note is the CPU cooler can be up to 165 millimeters in height, so that's a pretty good size CPU cooler into this case without a problem. Here you can see we've got the top panel of the case off, and we've got our 240 millimeter radiator mounted in here and attached to our CPU in the case. So this here, the top of the case here, just kind of pops off with 2 thumb screws on the back. easily slides back on, and then you just put the thumb screws back in to attach it into place. Next, let's take a look at the hard drive installations. The 3.5 and 2.5 inch drive installation into one of the drive bays, as well as the 2.5 inch SSD installation into the back of the case. So using these hard drive trays is actually really simple. If you are installing a 3.5 inch drive, you would place your drive into the tray over the rubber grommets here so that your screw holes line up, and then you're going to put one of the shock absorbing, or one of the screws in through the shock absorbing grommet and screw them down, and then you would just slide your tray back in and connect your cables up. For an SSD, very similarly, SSD or 2.5 inch drive, very similarly, you're going to take your drive and you're going to place it into the middle of the case here and put 4 of the 2.5 inch drive screws into the center here to hold the drive in place. Slide it in and connect your cables up. For your SSD trays that are on the back of the motherboard tray, what you're going to do is you're going to pull the 2 screws on the side of the SSD tray. It's going to give you a bracket. You're going to screw your hard drive or SSD into those brackets through the side with the 2.5 inch drive screws. Then you're going to place your drive back up here and put the 2 screws back in to hold the bracket in place. So what you end up with on the back of the motherboard tray is your SSD nicely mounted here. So if you decide to pull your hard drive bays out and your optical drive bay out and everything, you still have a place to mount your drive with your operating system on it if you're using a ton of water cooling in this case. You can see that there's also plenty of room here for routing your cables. There's about 20 millimeters worth of space in the back here for hiding cables away, and so when you put the side panel on, it should be nice and easy. The optical drive in this case is very simple to install. You simply pull the bezel and take this blank plate out, then you slide your drive in, and you're going to attach it on both sides with the included thumb screws, and then connect your cables up to the back of the drive. Last thing we installed is a graphics card into the system. So we pulled the 2 thumb screws here and pulled the blank plates out, inserted our graphics card, which in this case is a 650 Ti Boost, into the PCI Express slot, and put our thumb screws back into place. This is a pretty average size graphics card, and you can see there's plenty of room here to grow. If you do need support for a larger graphics card, you can pull this top hard drive tray out and have up to a 400 millimeter length graphics card in this case. So what I'm going to do is get the rest of the power cables connected up and show you the completed build. So here we have the completed build running, everything connected. As you can see, the cable management is pretty decent in the inside here, and on the back panel there's plenty of places to cinch down so you can easily get everything neat the way you want it. Plus you've got all the water cooling features, which are really great if you're into putting in extra water cooling and don't want a lot of fans running. You can hear the system's pretty quiet at idle. This is just with the front fan and the back fan, of course, but we got 2 fans on the water cooler as well. So let's take a look at some benchmarks. I hope you all enjoyed this overview, component installation, and benchmarks for the Fractal Design ARC Mini R2 mid-tower computer case. As you can see, you've got plenty of nice features with considering the SSD mounting on the back of the motherboard tray, plenty of space for cable management, and plenty of water cooling mounting locations, especially considering the popularity of all-in-one water coolers. For the full review, please see www.hightechlegion.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Take care.